President Trump will be hosting Chinese President Xi Jinping at his private Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida over the next 2 days. The US president has accused China of not only lying about climate change, but also of stealing American industry and jobs. But now he's also seeking to get China's help reining in North Korea's missile tests and nuclear program. But let's talk to Peter Mathews. He's a professor of political science who's in Long Beach in California, and he's the author of the book Dollar Democracy. Good morning to you, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So Mr. Trump says that he'll go into this meeting and deliver an ultimatum to the Chinese leader that if they don't rein in North Korea, the US is prepared to do so. How likely do you think it is that he will actually deliver that ultimatum to Mr. Xi?
I don't think he'll do that because it's a very dangerous ultimatum, because what can President Trump do about North Korea? The options he have are very limited. He cannot attack North Korea militarily because North Korea can attack South Korea and Japan even with missiles. And he cannot do anything else that would create havoc over there. He's got to be very careful and very diplomatic. So he's going to try to get China somehow, maybe behind the scenes, talk to President Xi about getting China to influence North Korea more so to limit its nuclear weapons and missile capability. He'll try to do that probably behind the scenes. I don't think he'll use bluster and outwardly to do that right now.
But given that Mr. Trump already had to backtrack on Taiwan, I mean, how damaging do you think it will be if he does walk in there and doesn't lay down that ultimatum?
Well, it could be seen anyway by different people, but I think that it wouldn't be that damaging. It'll be more damaging if he lays the ultimatum down and then China doesn't do much about it. And China is concerned because if they put too much pressure on North Korea, it could end up that North Korea goes out of business, it loses its economy, and there are floods of refugees that will flood China and overwhelm the economy of China. So China has a real interest in keeping North Korea stable. Now, here's another problem. The United States has never signed a peace treaty with North Korea. We've never recognized North Korea with a peace treaty after the Korean War. We only have an armistice. And I think North Korea wants that guarantee that it will remain as a nation that won't get invaded. There won't be regime change over there. And in fact, North Korea was negotiating on the agreed framework with President Clinton a few years ago to limit their nuclear activity and to allow inspectors to come in as long as the United States and Japan and South Korea would help them get alternative energy, such as nuclear power, non-missile-based nuclear power, non-nuclear weapons-based nuclear power, as well as oil, which President Clinton actually delivered to North Korea for a while. Under President Bush, things turned around when President Bush called North Korea part of the axis of evil, and then President Bush went after the first axis member, Iraq, and overthrew the government there. It made North Korea far more sensitive and concerned about having regime change there, and they've started escalating. Now they have several nuclear weapons ready to go. They're testing missiles that could go more than medium range. They want to go long range, which would be a very dangerous thing for California and the United States if they could hit us. But North Korea feels that they can only defend against any kind of a regime change by doing that. I'm not justifying it, but you have to understand where they're coming from. If we could turn the rhetoric down and negotiate more through China, back channels, and then open up trade with North Korea and more cultural exchanges if they'll let us do that, it can be done, I think. It's going to be very difficult. But President Clinton showed it was done for a while.
So do you think that China would actually be prepared to do that?
I think if you use saving face, because that's an Eastern, both are Eastern cultures, and they believe in not confronting outwardly and shaming one country or opponent one way or the other, shaming them publicly. If the U.S. used diplomatic behind-the-scenes channels to talk to China and to possibly even get some action with North Korea to negotiate with them through back channels, this could work. But the United States has to assure that North Korea will not be invaded and that we will sign a peace treaty with them, recognizing them. That's a tough thing, too. And yet South Korea and Japan don't want the U.S. to rock the boat by saber-rattling and causing instability, because the most people that will suffer the most are going to be South Korea and Japan if North Korea feels attacked and launches a preemptive strike or retaliatory measure against those two countries, either nuclear or conventional. Those countries will suffer the most. And that'll be the most likely reaction of North Korea if we provoke North Korea. That's why I would advise President Trump. I think he's probably going to be a bit more toned down. He'd already reduced his tone against China. Initially, he was going belligerently against China, saying, questioning the one China policy. And when President Xi called him and said, look, this is a bedrock policy, we will not give it up, President Trump actually assured President Xi publicly that we retain the one China policy. So Trump is willing to negotiate when things are agreeable to him, or when he can decide that that's the more important thing to do. I hope he can do that again on other issues like North Korea as well.
Well, looking at these two gentlemen, how important is it, do you think, both for the US and for the rest of the world, that they do have a good relationship going into these talks and post these Mar-a-Lago talks?
It is extremely important because they are the world's two largest economies. And China, although we have a trade deficit, the United States has a trade deficit with China of about $340 billion, still, China is also invested in the United States. It invests in businesses here. It buys property here. China has, the middle class in China, which has grown since the trade, actually buys American products. But here's the key problem, is that the Chinese labor force is way too underpaid over there. And the workers in China are working for a little over $1 an hour. For example, at the Apple factories that are contracted with Taiwanese corporations in China, Apple contractors pay the workers only a little over $1 an hour. And those jobs could have been kept in America or to be shared. And that's a problem of exporting jobs because of the low labor over there. So despite the fact China has grown a middle class that could buy American products, it has to do better than that. One more thing about this currency manipulation that Trump has been bringing up, he needs to be informed actually that China has actually kept its currency up, because if China had let its currency float freely, as the United States has demanded for a while, other countries demanded, the yuan would actually be lower value than what it is right now. Instead, the Central Bank of China has set the daily interest rates to keep the yuan currency more steady and stable. And that means if the currency is high, that means we won't be exporting a lot of jobs or losing a lot of money from imports. I think the Chinese have been doing pretty well with that. The problem is that Trump doesn't quite understand how that exchange system works. I think he will certainly be learning about it, though.
Okay, Peter, thank you so much. Well, let's go back to our top story now. And as we've heard, President Trump has described the suspected gas attack in Syria as an